All right, let's get into it. Today, we're really going to unpack a pretty pressing question, I think. How effective were President Prabowo and Vice President Gibran really in their first 100 days? For this deep dive, our source is a debate transcript. It lays out arguments for and arguments against their early performance. And our mission, well, it's to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from both sides so you get the full picture.
Yeah, and that immediately brings up a key point, doesn't it? How do we actually assess such a critical early period? Evaluating governance right at the start, it involves balancing these ambitious plans they announce with the immediate impact they have, and maybe just as important, how the public actually sees it, how they understand what's going on. It's rarely just a simple pass or fail situation.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's start with the arguments for their effectiveness. What were the sort of tangible achievements highlighted in those first 100 days?
Well, the debate definitely pointed to several big initiatives. First off, the program Makan Begitu Gratis, the MBG. That's their big nutrition program, right? A cornerstone of their social agenda. It was launched pretty quickly across 10 provinces, apparently reaching about 500,000 school children. Shows a fast rollout.
Okay, 500,000 kids, 10 provinces. That's pretty significant coverage early on. What else?
Then there was talk about the Program 3 Yudha Rakyat, a really ambitious housing program. It's aimed at tackling the housing shortage, using land reallocation and getting banks involved with incentives. And third, a noticeable push on defense diplomacy. Visits to 8 different countries.
8 countries.
Yeah, and apparently that led to some actual export contracts for PTDI and PL Indonesia, the state defense firms.
Yeah.
So a focus on boosting domestic industry there, too.
Okay, those do sound like concrete steps, especially so early. But, the proof is often in the pudding, or how the public reacts. What do the data say?
Right. Well, they cited an indicator survey, which showed 68% of the public saw the cabinet as cukup sangat efektif. That translates to moderately to very effective, which is, a pretty strong majority view for the first 100 days.
68% effective.
Yeah.
Okay. And was there anything more specific?
Yeah, there was also a survey mentioned from Solo, where Gibran was mayor previously. That one showed really high satisfaction, 87.43%. So in that specific local context, very positive feedback. These numbers suggest a good initial public reception overall.
That's quite a contrast, 68 nationally versus almost 88 locally. Interesting. But okay, every story has 2 sides. The debate must have raised criticisms too. What were the main counterarguments?
Definitely. The critical side focused on a few key areas. One was surprisingly low public understanding of these big programs. Only about 45% of people reportedly got the details of the MBG and the housing program, which suggests maybe a gap between policy and public awareness.
Only 45% understanding.
Oh.
Okay, that's a potential issue. What else?
Implementation challenges were also brought up. Specifically with the MBG program, there were reports of distribution delays, up to 2 weeks in some places. And then a broader point about the budget concern that the large allocation for defense might squeeze funding for other important social programs down the line.
Right, the classic guns versus butter sort of concern. So
Yeah.
Delays, low understanding, budget questions. How did the government's team respond to these criticisms in the debate?
They had rebuttals, yeah. On the MBG awareness issue, they said they recognize the need for better socialization. They mentioned efforts involving local figures to get the word out better. For the housing program, the 3 Juda, they talked about launching a real-time online portal to boost transparency, let people track progress.
Okay, so using tech for transparency there. And the solo satisfaction numbers.
They addressed that too. They basically clarified that, yes, Solo's numbers were high, but it is a specific local context. You can't necessarily extrapolate that nationwide. And they acknowledged the 68% national effectiveness rating still means, well, 32% weren't satisfied. So there's still work to do. What's kind of fascinating here is seeing that tension, between the achievements they're announcing and the real-world challenges of making sure people understand, and the programs actually run smoothly.
Right. So if we pull this all together,
Yeah.
what's the main takeaway from both sides of this argument? What does it all mean?
Well, I think what this deep dive really underlines is that gap that can exist between launching big, ambitious programs and the tougher reality of public comprehension and just getting the execution right. Assessing those first 100 days, or any early period really, means you have to look beyond just the headlines, beyond the program launch announcements. You need to weigh the successful rollouts against how well people actually get it and how smoothly things are actually working on the ground. High satisfaction doesn't always mean deep understanding, and that's a constant challenge, isn't it?
It really is. And that brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. When you're evaluating a new administration's start, what benchmarks matter most to you? Is it how quickly they launch things? Is it whether the public really understands the policies? Or is it about flawless execution from day one? As this deep dive shows, it's usually a mix and often quite a complex picture. Something to think about.